Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to another Planet FPL Clash of the Correspondents. And today I'm joined by two correspondents who already know what the score's going to be between their two teams at the weekend because, quite frankly, it always ends 5-0. Firstly, let me introduce you to our Manchester City correspondent, Jonny Pringle. How are you, Johnny?
Yeah, good. Thanks, James. Thanks for having me on again.
You're very welcome, mate. And let me introduce you to our Burnley correspondent, ready for the weekend's hiding. It's Jack Toner. Hello, Jack.
Hi, James. How are we doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, mate. I want to get into this whole 5-0 thing first. So it's been 5-0 the last 4 times you've met at the Etihad. Johnny, do you think there's any particular reason why this keeps happening, or is it just a freak occurrence?
No, because whenever we play Burnley, I always think that they're the type of team that are going to put up a really stubborn defence and limit space and limit chances and should be a really tough game, but it just never seems to materialise. I don't know whether Burnley just because the squad hasn't changed so much over the years. Whether they've just got it in their head now that they beat when they show up. But I never particularly take Burnley for granted. Like I say, I always think it's going to be a tough game until it turns out not to be about half an hour in.
Jack, got any theory on it?
No idea. We've obviously struggled against the better teams as anyone lower in the league does, but we put in decent performances against Liverpool and Chelsea over the years, but City just seems to be just the bogey team every time. 5-0.
Seems to have had a decent record at Old Trafford recently, which I'm okay with that arrangement.
Is it City style, do you think, Jack, in terms of that they play differently to everybody else in terms of the keeping the ball?
I think so.
They just kind of kill you off in terms of letting you run around, basically.
I always feel like Mahrez always gets a couple against us as well. I feel like they always seem to come fresh out of like rotating, so they're just bringing the best forwards on as keeping them fresh. So I've literally no idea, but we've obviously City are a top side, and we just can't seem to shake them off.
Yeah. So for clarity, those 4 5-0 wins, 3 in the Premier League, 1 in the FA Cup as well. There's also been a 3-0 League Cup win away to Burnley, a 2-0 win in the league last year at Burnley, 4-1 away at Burnley the year before, 1-0 away at Burnley the year before that. And just looking back, Jack, so since I want to say George Boyd scored the winner at Turf Moor back in 2015, and I think probably Pellegrini, I want to say, was maybe your manager, Johnny. They've beat you every time by one draw, a 1-1 draw in February 2018, which I want to say was the ridiculous Raheem Sterling miss, Johnny. When he was punching the ground, he should have won that day as well.
Yeah, okay. One of only 6 games we didn't win that season.
Rub it in, mate. Why don't you? So you do beat everybody else as well. Do you feel like you've used up your 5-0s though, Johnny? Considering you obviously had 2 very early on in the season.
I don't think so. I don't see it like that. I think just going back, maybe one reason why Burnley aren't that successful against us is because teams that are successful against us tend to break quickly and have fast players. Burnley have never really seemed to have that. It takes them a while to get up the pitch. Obviously, we know how they play at home. Pretty route one, trying to get corners, throw-ins, just get as far up the pitch as possible that way. And City are quite good at obviously just keeping the ball, and we do have decent defenders for repelling that style of play. In answer to that question, no, like I say, I think take as many 5-0s as we can get.
Incoming. Jack, I think a lot of people have noticed what we've discussed a few times in terms of the midfield press is far higher for you now. Or could it be relative to the fact that actually this has been happening longer than we've noticed, and probably no team is better than picking up space in between midfield and defence than actually Manchester City?
Yeah, I think so. We sort of seen it last year. We were transitioning a bit and the midfield was sort of getting out and pushing out much quicker. I just think we've been a bit inconsistent with it. You can just sort of read us within the first 5-10 minutes and you just think, well, either in for a really long day or this is going to work. And I just think that was our case last season. We just really struggled in certain games. But then having said that, there were certain games like I remember the Wolves away fixture, and I think Everton was another one where it was absolutely superb, like back at our best. But then we've also had some absolutely awful displays. So I think it was just last season was hard to judge off because everyone sort of struggled with, with it being COVID and whatnot. but this season we've sort of haven't come out the blocks quick either. So yeah, I mean, Man City is one of them for us where, if it was to finish 4-0, we'd class that as an improvement on the previous season. So
a result to go and have a party, would you?
No, I just think in another sense, you think City is one of them where we're not expected to win, takes the pressure off a little bit. After coming out of a crappy performance against Norwich.
I've said on the pod a few times recently that Burnley notoriously start seasons slowly. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah.
Or is it just something I've got in the back of my mind from somewhere?
Well, the last season we started well was when we'd finished in the Europa League, and when we started off by beating Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. But since the season that followed, we was abysmal for the first 6 or 7 games, and this season hasn't been much different really. Performances have been there at times, we just haven't had the results to follow.
We'll talk about some of them. Jonny, how do you feel about your performances? Obviously, we last spoke before Arsenal, which I think with the red card and the way they opened up against you, we could probably move on for. But I guess generally you're quite happy with this run of away games you've had since Leicester, Chelsea, Liverpool. 7 points away from home is great, isn't it?
Yeah. I think you said, James, at the start of the season that if we were top after this run of fixtures,
cancel the season,
but it'd be a real good,
yeah.
It'd be a real good outcome. Obviously, 2 points off top. I'll take that. After the Southampton game at home, I was a bit negative. 1 shot on target. We didn't play well. I did feel a little bit like, I think Chelsea beat Tottenham the next day, didn't they? And I felt
thanks for reminding me, sweetheart. Yeah.
This doesn't fit. And I think Liverpool beat someone as well. I felt like, it just doesn't feel like we've got enough this season. But then, obviously, the 3 performances against Chelsea, PSG, and Liverpool were just all brilliant. Thought we played really well in all 3. If you'd have offered me a win, a loss, and a draw, I would have taken it in them exact games. I felt like we needed to stop the Chelsea momentum and get some points back on them. Just don't get beat by Liverpool, and then obviously you can lose to PSG and still go through. So the problem's obviously still there regarding lack of striker, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I think we've come out of that week in really good shape.
I don't want to linger on it too much because I think it's the best I've seen of you in probably the last 18 months or so. But did the Chelsea game in a roundabout way piss you off a bit?
Yes. Yeah.
And you know why I'm asking that question, don't you?
Yeah. Like it was mixed emotions for like hours after the game. Just all my group chats between City friends and family were just saying, why the fuck didn't we play that team or play that way in the Champions League final? But it's a different game, isn't it? They've got no Mason Mount.
They played a different system as well, yeah.
But yeah, obviously it did feel like that because the overwhelming feeling coming out of that game was we are just better than them. And the fact we just weren't able to show it in the Champions League final does hurt a bit.
So what happened in this Southampton game for it to go bad? Because it felt like, and I understand what you're saying afterwards, you were like, oh, I can feel it, like the no centre forward thing. Guardiola had a whinge after the attendance against Leipzig in the week before, and it felt like he was putting pressure on himself unnecessarily. So what did Southampton do that day that actually resulted in them limiting you to 1 shot on target?
They pressed very well as any team I've seen come to City. I think a lot of people pointed on that day to the lack of striker, but we barely created anything. Like one thing I found was that we were starting attacks really deep. Like Southampton kept getting to the edge of our box or to our goal, and we had to start again. As we all know, City's strength is sort of recycling them attacks, not letting teams get out. And it was just getting frustrating that we couldn't do that to Southampton. I think a key point was neither Foden nor De Bruyne played. The front 3 was Jesus, Sterling, and Grealish. And as good as a start as Jesus has had, I think him and Sterling in the same front line as Grealish, who doesn't have that many goals in him, it did feel a little bit toothless that day. But as soon as De Bruyne and Foden came on, it felt like a goal was inevitable, to be fair. And it did come in the end, obviously disallowed by an inch. But I felt like he could take something away from that game because of that.
Easy could have gone the other way though with the overturning of the penalty decision against Cole Walker as well.
Yeah, true. We were lucky there.
That's interesting because, as we've said with Jack a number of times, like Burnley will go and press. I just thinking about it a bit more. I'm wondering if perhaps it's a Southampton thing, because actually I've given you issues last season as well. I know the 5-2 game became quite open, but they gave you some trouble defensively. And actually, the 1-0 game last year felt like the trigger towards all those clean sheets. It was like the first time it was against, definitely with respect to them, weaker team, where you went, we're going to take this. We're going to sit off and let them try and break us down. So I think they're a particular opponent that perhaps give you some problems. Wasn't it? It was 1-0 the year before, wasn't it? When you had about 20 shots on goal at St Mary's in the restart period. When Che Adams scored from about 40 yards.
Yeah. And one game that always sticks out in my head is, again, going back to 2017, the 100-point season, Sterling's last-minute winner. They really frustrated us that night. We were on a streak of about 11 or 12 games. I think we were about 5 points clear at the time, and United had just put a bit of pressure on, and it felt like a big goal. But I remember Southampton.
Yeah.
I remember Southampton really frustrated us.
And last day of the season, Jesus.
Yeah.
Was injury time as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe they're just an opponent that just generally seems to give you some problems, actually. What are you thinking towards the weekend then, John, based on what you're saying? De Bruyne and Foden back fit, it's game changer for you, isn't it? And actually, this is probably the point we should clarify this and say we are recording prior to the internationals on Tuesday evening. And one of Man City's players is bound to get injured. But go ahead, Johnny. Tell us the difference.
What, in terms of Foden and De Bruyne being back?
Yeah, what difference does it make to the team?
Yeah, it just makes a massive difference. And De Bruyne is just, I agree with you, what you said on the pod the other day, James. I think he's the best player in the league, best all-round player, brings so much to us. And Foden, I genuinely think he's our second best player now, our most clinical attacker. I think in a team that, well, we just said lacks goals, I think he has to start every game now, regardless of position. Just so excited by him. I think he's gone under the radar a little bit because he sort of emerged in that winter period, didn't he? That's where he started to pick up regular games. And then when we started to wrap the league up, he started every week in the Champions League and not in the league. So no one really had him in FPL. Got injured for England during the Euros, hasn't started this season, so no one's had him. And I think now, like I said, because he's gone so long for various reasons without being in the team, I think I'm hoping that he's going to get a serious run of games and that he could explode.
Is his best position the same as Grealish, though?
Yeah, I think this is it. And I think this is a discussion City have been having. Sam Leeds has written an article today and that he wouldn't be surprised to see Grealish set out a few games. Obviously, Grealish has played an awful lot of football on that left wing, but he's been good. I have been impressed with Grealish who's played there, but Foden is just so much more direct, so much more dangerous. You feel like something's going to happen when he gets the ball every time. You don't. Basically, just so much more direct than Grealish. You don't get that feeling. But
then we were under the impression, weren't we, John, that Grealish was bought to play as an 8.
Yeah.
So could it be Grealish inside of Foden with De Bruyne to the right of Grealish? And then I guess it means if Gundogan's going to play, he's possibly going to play deeper and be in competition with Rodri.
Yeah, I suspect basically what will happen with Grealish now is obviously, like I say, he's had a lot of game time, but he might just start to rotate in and out now. I think one thing you can't really discount as well is a lot of wingers that have signed for City, even like Mahrez, who had years in the Premier League, Bernardo Silva, Sane, they all took a year to adapt. I know, obviously, the obvious comeback to that is someone who costs 100 million shouldn't be taking that long to adapt, but it does at City. So, like I say, he might just be in and out of the team and then might find a regular starting spot either as a number 8 or left wing.
So, Ferran Torres is in year 2. And you know he's the one everyone wants to buy this week, despite the fact no one's seen him for about 3 weeks.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think City's best system in them big games is with a false 9. So I understand why he was dropped. And he obviously scored twice for Spain against Italy, didn't he? He looked like he had a really good game there. And yeah, you'd think that the next 3 would be the type of games that Torres would play in. I wouldn't be surprised if he did, but also at the same time, Sterling started against Southampton when you might have expected Torres to play. I feel like that might have been Sterling's position, most likely position now. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sterling started over Torres. If you were to guarantee me Torres was to start the next 3, I probably would get him because they are 3 games suited for him.
So we said prior to game week 3, and actually in pre-season, we probably said, look, we'd probably get to this point, then make our Manchester City decision. I cannot see me buying an attacking player this week. What's your plan, mate?
I'm on wildcard at the moment.
So one's got to go in, surely.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Foden.
Okay.
I think for the reasons we just talked about with Torres. I think the other option is KDB, but I think he's not nailed on penalties anymore. And with obviously the other premium options, it feels a little bit too expensive, especially when you don't know where his position is going to be. If we do revert back to that false 9 with sort of De Bruyne as the false 9, or maybe rotate with Bernardo, he'd be a good option because he'd be further up the pitch. But I think there's a slight bit of unknown there. And then, like I said, with Torres, I think, I don't know whether obviously he is guaranteed to start. I feel like we will play a striker in the next 3, but I don't know necessarily whether he'll start all 3. And also, just in terms of team structure, you don't want to go too low, because I think, like most people, I'm going to have Salah, Rafinha, and then I don't want to have 3 really cheap midfielders. At least Foden gets shit at, I know he's 7.9.
Well, I see lots of people looking to line up that way, Johnny, with midfields like Salah, Rafinha, and Buemo, and then Ferran Torres, for example. So
yeah, no,
I've seen a lot looking that way.
At least Foden maybe gets you to nearly the 8 bracket, so it's not quite as high a jump to Son or someone else that you want to get.
The thing is, if you got frustrated with Foden quickly, there's nowhere that you'd be going at the moment anyway, other than down, I think. So,
and I feel like it's quite rare that I make a decision like this in FPL, which is quite biased, and just because I like a player so much from City. But I'd hate for him to go on a mad one, and for me not to be part of it, basically.
All right, we'll come back onto the defensive in a bit. Jack, your thoughts on City attacking assets? Plans for yourself?
I've put Torres in about 3 weeks ago.
And he's
so
still
held.
there.
Yeah. I just knew that obviously against us,
the fact that he hasn't game week 8.
Yeah, the fact that he hasn't played the last 3 makes me think he's going to start sometime soon, and what better to do that against us. So yeah, he's a definite hold for me. I'll eventually move off him, but other than that, I eventually want to get Cancelo in, but he's not a rush for me this week because I just think there's that much risk of rotation with City, especially against us. So yeah, he's a long-term pick, but not one I'm rushing for. Yeah,
Cancelo personally is the one I would like to get the most. I think at the moment, I'm not sure it's going to work out for me because of other injuries, and I see Trent Alexander-Arnold's definitely been past fit, and that's definitely going to tempt me as well. But yeah, he's the standout one. Should owners be concerned, Johnny, about Zinchenko's back to fitness as well? I think it's not confirmed as yet, but the reports prior to the international break was, yeah, look, he should be ready for Burnley.
I saw a post on Instagram the other day with it was him on his bike. I don't know when City will return to training. But even if he does, Cancelo is playing just such a high level that I think him and Walker are just the first choice fullbacks at the moment. Obviously, like I said, Zinchenko could come back in, but I think Cancelo is playing at such a high level and creating so many chances and is playing so well that I think the consensus is that you just take that risk now with him.
Of course, he can always switch to the right as well and go and play right back. So
in the games against maybe the lower teams, we saw last season that Walker dropped out and Cancelo offered so much on that side, but you didn't really need Walker's pace like in the bigger games.
Is this a lock now, do you think, with Laporte and Diaz?
I don't know. It's strange what's happened with Stones. You asked me at the start of the season, did I think that Stones and Diaz would be the partnership? Would it revert back to that? And I said yes, because I thought it would. And I feel like I've heard rumblings that basically Stones isn't happy with Pep/City because obviously he signed his contract and then just hasn't had a look in at all. To be fair to City, he went off with England and got injured and then came back, hasn't really played, and then gone off with England again. But it does feel like Stones is back to square one a little bit. Laporte has played well, and much like Stones last season, where it was if you're not playing badly, then you're not going to get dropped. I feel like that's the same with Laporte now. The games after the break are Burnley in the league, Bruges in the Champions League, is it Brighton away, West Ham in the Cup. So the league and cup games really start to alternate. So I wouldn't be surprised if Laporte did just come back in for the league games and Stone start the cup games. I wouldn't be unhappy going with Laporte. I am considering him, to be fair. If I need to make some sacrifices, I will go Laporte over Diaz.
It could even be where I end up going this week. I mean, I've got, as it stands, exact money Luke Ayling to Laporte to solve a potential problem for me, because I think I do want one of your players defensively, but I can probably ill afford to get one in this week that's not going to play, because my defensive coverage, Jack, is Matt Lowton, and I know it's a -1 this week, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's got every chance of doing that, hasn't it? But yeah, I mean, I've talked before about us picking up clean sheets when you wouldn't expect them. Like, I really wouldn't expect it this week, but I mean, having said that, you do just never know. And in obviously response to all the team selection headache that you get at Man City, like, I can tell you our team every week for the next 5 or 6 game weeks. So you know that Loughton's there and he's nailed on. So it's not much of a.
Is he? Because obviously I made the decision to get him in last week. Obviously not with this in mind, the fact you had Norwich. I've got a little return out of him. A little frustrated that Charlie Taylor got a 9-pointer and Lowton got 5, but that's by the by. I've looked at it and gone, if I'm going to not wildcard for a while, I'm quite happy to have Burnley defensive as cover for all the weeks coming up, bar this one, and game week 11 away to Chelsea. Like, if I ended up with having to play Lowton any week, I'd go, yeah, that's okay. The fixtures look absolutely fine. But is Lowton safe? Because obviously Connor Roberts is nearing fitness, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he played 45 minutes for Wales the other night and looked fresh apparently, but again, we know how Dyche operates. It's similar to the Stones position last year. Obviously, if he's in there doing a job, he was absolutely sensational against Leicester, kept us in the game. And Dyche does sort of keep his faith. It would take, obviously, I think it would be, obviously the City game is regardless anyway. So whatever happens there, I don't think, there's any danger. It's more like if you start to lose your Southampton, Brentford's, Palace, that you think, if there needs to be a change and Roberts is there knocking on the door, then that might be one that Dyche looks to. But, he joined right, I think it was deadline day. So he joined right towards the end of the window, obviously was nursing an injury, just come back. So I think definitely short to mid-term, I can't see past Loughton, and Dyche doesn't change it that easily. So
I think it's fair to say Matt Lowton's played well in 2021, hasn't he?
Yeah.
As well.
He had a good season last season. Obviously, everyone was looking towards Taylor. Taylor didn't quite get the form
injured.
Yeah. He's been a bit like that the last couple of seasons. Not big injuries, but just little niggles that keep him out of the odd game. And the amount of DMs I've had this year asking about Taylor or Loughton, it's one of those. They're the same price.
DMing you and asking you about Burnley players.
Quite a few, yeah.
What do you say to them? Like, why are you here? Or
no, so you got lost somewhere on the internet.
Honestly, it was one of the closest decisions I've made all season. The more I spoke during the week before the Norwich game, I was like, it's Burnley. I was talking to other people saying Burnley, and it was the solution for myself as well, because of exactly that. All these fixtures coming up going, yeah, do you know what? Up till sort of game week 17, all the way up till basically 2022, Burnley are capable of keeping a clean sheet in any game. And I would fancy it as a possibility other than 2 this weekend and game week 11 at Chelsea. You're capable of winning any of them games and keeping a clean sheet.
Yeah.
Is there now an even cheaper option though than Lowton and Taylor that suddenly become available?
In Collins?
Yeah. Tell us about him.
Yeah, he played well against.
Bless you, Johnny.
Thank you.
He played well against Norwich. He won to watch because I think there's been heavy rumours with Tarkowski potentially on the move to Newcastle. Saying
they got some money or something.
Yeah, a little bit knocking around apparently.
Johnny, tell us about that after the show.
Yeah, I think he's obviously been bought like what Tarkowski was a few seasons ago. He's there to be the understudy, and he's excellent cover to have. 4.3. There's definitely better options out there. Like you like Livramentos and Williams and stuff that are definitely going to play every week. But yeah, I think the nearer we get to January, he's definitely one to keep an eye out on, especially if his price stays around 4.3.
So what's the situation with Ben Mee? You obviously missed the game with Norwich through injury. What's the story with him?
I think it was just a knock. I think he'll be fine. I think he pulled up in training on the Friday before we played on the Saturday, so it was just too soon for the game. But obviously with the break in between, I imagine he goes straight back in against City. It'd be unfair to give Collins a second run out against City. So I think it'll be just back to basics.
Clean sheet, though, mate.
Yeah, he did play well. To be fair, it was a solid debut.
So what's the midfield for then going forward? If you're saying you know what it's going to look like, what we expect?
If fit, because obviously Cornet picked up an injury against Leicester.
I fucking hope he doesn't play.
I know.
Cornet.
Yeah, he's our nemesis, isn't he?
He's that
4 goals in the last 3 against you.
Is that a Champions League memory again that's bothering you again, Johnny?
Yeah, what was it, Jack? You just said?
Yeah, 4 goals in the last 3. He scored 2, didn't he, in that quarter-final, 19-20. It's not you out.
Yeah.
He looks a player, though.
But he scored twice against us in 2018, the group stages as well. Yeah. So there's not many players that sort of do well against City, but yeah, he's one of our nemesis.
Is he fit? Get him in the team, surely.
He travelled with Ivory Coast, but he didn't play. He was on the bench, so that gives me the sort of inkling that he's there and thereabouts. Whether we'd risk him against City, I'm not too sure. But yeah, if fit, he would start on the left, I think, which means McNeil's now deployed on the right. Whee!
I'm so happy about that.
Which makes Loughton a good asset as well, though, with McNeil on the right. You can just cut inside and shoot.
Yes, that's a fair point, actually.
And then obviously the central 2 will be Westwood and Brownhill at the moment. In some games, I'd like to see us switch between Brownhill and Cork, but I don't think he will. Cork just sits a little bit deeper. And I think sometimes with how, against the Man City, with how we just, if we're continuing to press and just leave so much space in behind, it just leaves us wide open. So I would like to see Cork play a few games, but I think it's Brownhill's spot to lose.
Brownhill, for me, if I was on wildcard, it would 100% be going in for me this week.
Yeah.
At 4.4. Is that a really straightforward choice for those who are not looking to go 5 in midfield? I
think so. He's not one you'd really start. He's not explosive winger that's or an out of position. So he'll chip in with the few, and obviously we're gonna pick up a few more clean sheets over the coming weeks, so he'll get a few points from that as well. But yeah, I think he's one not to overthink, and he's one of the best 4.4s that's regularly playing. I
do notice, Jack, he's already on 3 yellow cards. It's the week you need that 2-pointer is the week you'll miss. You know that. Like, it's
I don't overthink that.
Always happens.
I can't remember the last time we actually had someone suspended for picking up too many yellow cards, to be honest. So
didn't Burnley recently become like the first team in years to go 100 games without a red card?
Yeah, I don't think it was 100. We beat the record though. I think it was over 70. So I think we're into like the 80s or something now. 80 odd games without a red card.
Which is just totally opposite to the reputation. But
that's mate.
Yeah, so how, like, obviously Klopp's come out so many times and slagged us off. We've never.
I mean, I didn't see the Leeds game, Jack, but I heard that was very rough.
Yeah, it was from both teams. Was in the crowd as well. Actually, there was some Leeds fans sat behind me that I jumped on when we scored.
I heard you were throwing shit at Arsenal the other week as well. You lot want to calm down, mate.
Yeah, that was again made a bit of a meal of, but yeah, wasn't good.
Yeah, Brownhill would go in. You think he's ahead of Cork in the package?
Yeah,
generally
speaking. He started every game. He'd be one of them where if it was 3 or 4 bad results in a row, he'd be potentially one of the casualties. But I think he's the sort of long-term thinking in the middle.
And Chris Wood's partner?
Vidra most of the time, but then Rodriguez scored 4 in the cup, albeit against against Oldham. Rochdale, was it? Oldham, Rochdale? One of the two. But then he got injured just before the Leicester game, so that was a bit of a bummer. But again, yeah, I think Vidra doesn't contribute with so many goals, but I think his style of play just stretches defence a bit more. When you're playing 2 big lads up front, we're so easy to read, whereas Vidra just offers that. If they're going to play a high line, he can just get in behind and gives you another
also
dimension.
In terms of, like, if your midfield's going to try and press and win the ball between the lines and stuff, like, he's got to be better for that than Ashley Barnes as well. So even like, you think, Barnes is a nuisance, and he's the sort of player, Ashley Barnes, you look at everywhere, and I mean this with the nicest respect. He's shit, but I don't want him to play against my team.
Yeah, I get that. I think he definitely has lost his edge a bit. I think Dyche has just got a bit too much faith with him. We've got a dilemma to have at the end of the season anyway, because both Rodriguez, Vidra and Barnes are all out of contract. So we're going to have to do some sort of business there. Which 1 or 2 he'll let go, I'm not too sure.
Talking about, I think just very briefly, because I mean, you did actually spend some money, and I was getting a bit worried for you.
Yeah.
That we were going to be having that, the new owners haven't spent any money conversation.
It's not, it was needed. We still could have done with a little bit more, I think. Obviously, the Collins one was basically just a swap in value because we sold Gibson to Norwich. Cornet's just completely lifted the fans. The momentum's just completely changed. He came on against Arsenal. He could have just sat on the floor and the whole crowd was just like in awe of him. It just literally changes. That was one of the games where we got beat 1-0, but if there'd have been another 20 minutes, there was definitely an equaliser coming. You could just, the whole atmosphere just changed, and it's been a long time since it's been like that. But yeah, I still think, we'd need someone a little bit more clinical to partner Wood. Potentially another winger once we've got this year out of Aaron Lennon.
On Dyche's comments about Cornet were quite interesting. I think you know where I'm going with this, because Dyche has got this reputation where he only wants to buy British players, but he made a very interesting comment about Cornet. I take it you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We basically said, well, now I've got owners who are a bit more open-minded to buying basically overseas players and stuff.
Yeah. I think we need to, because the sort of players that we're looking at with the budget we've got, you're looking at your past it players. We spent 3 million on the likes of Lennon when he was on his way out, sent him abroad, and he's come back again. For me, the frustrating thing is we're spending the times we are spending money, it's on players that you're never going to recoup a transfer fee for. The likes of Brownhill, who was like 24, club captain for Bristol. We paid £8 million for him. Even if he flops, you're going to get most of that £8 million back, which now we'd get at least double that. Especially due to his age. Same with Cornet, you think we'll recoup some of that. Same with Collins. So I just think for us, it's about just buying a little bit wiser. Hopefully the new board sees that and we can get a few hopefully hidden gems from abroad. And it sort of did surprise me with Dyche chucking Cornet straight in to start against Leicester. Normally with him, it takes.
Repaid it though, didn't they?
Yeah, of course. It was. He's obviously scored on his full debut. It was a hell of a strike as well. Just unfortunate to see him go off.
And Dyche obviously signed a new contract, which we spoke about very briefly. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
That was so under the radar. That must be great news.
Yeah, definitely. A few fans have started to lose a little bit of faith. I think it's just because of the style of football we play. It isn't always the best to watch. But for me, with all the uncertainty of going through a takeover and and where we're at, you would want no one else. And to say that he signed a deal for 5 years is definitely superb news for the club. I was buzzing with that. Any
Burnley players in your squad, Johnny?
Brownhill was pre-wildcard. Whether he survives, don't know. But no, not looking elsewhere.
And you're on that now, aren't you? Wildcard.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you looking to go 5 midfield then?
No, I don't think so. Just considering, I think Norman at Norwich is a decent shout for that 4.5 spot.
He had a great game against us.
Yeah, he seems to have. I watched match of the day when they played Everton, and he seemed to have a good ping on him from outside the box.
Yeah, likes a shot. I think a few have picked up on that.
Yeah, I've heard a few good things, so I might go with him because I think there actually is. You could even start him this week. I think if Norwich got this week Brighton, if you didn't want to start your Brentford players against Chelsea, I don't know, but yeah.
Johnny's going to play Norman instead of Mbuemo. That's going to come back and bite. I can see that already.
That's not me saying I will. I'm saying someone that wanted to maybe could.
No, I can't see that. Unfortunately, it's still Norwich at the moment. Jack, you got Chris Wood last week, I believe.
Yeah, I was a bit pissed off.
You were thinking of even captaining him, apparently.
Yeah, in my drunken state, walking home on Friday night, thought, yeah, I'm going to sub him in. I'm going to captain him. Logged in the morning, was like, nope, let's put that on Lukaku. It was a bit frustrating because you think for us, Norwich, from how poor they've been, obviously they're going to want to turn it around at some point, but that should have been our first win. You've got to want to go all out against teams like Norwich. And last season, we was poor against the bottom six again. So I think we had just 2 wins out of the 12 games against the bottom six, which is definitely not good enough. And definitely concerning because they're sort of top 6, 7, 8 now even. They're looking even more solid. They've strengthened a lot more. So, we're going to pick up less, sort of fluky wins against a out of form, sort of top side, where we did manage to do last season.
Jack, look on the bright side. You might only have 3 points, but you are level on points with the richest club in the world, mate. What's your plan with Wood? Does he stay there now? I mean, do you start him at City, for example?
No, I had cover. I always knew that I was going to bench him this week. I'll probably play him Southampton, Brentford, and then probably move off depending on the form. It was similar to what Jonny was saying about Foden. Wood is obviously not to the same level as Foden, but we've always talked about him being a streaky player. So if he was to sort of get 2 goals against Norwich, you wouldn't be surprised if he was to get another sort of 3 or 4 in his next 4. So I sort of wanted to get on board with the train early, which hasn't yet departed.
I'd play him, Jack. If you score, he's the most likely player, mate. I realise we all already know what.
But we scored 4 goals all season, so I'm not exactly thinking that.
See, I don't want to have the conversations with you that I had with you last year because it just feels like an exact repeat, and I feel like at some point soon it will settle. It will settle, and it'll work out. Although, I mean, it's looking more and more tough to stay up every year, I must say.
Hey, you're saying it's going to be Wood scoring. It's surely going to be Cornet, Man City's nemesis.
I don't think Johnny's impressed with that. Go on in, Jonny. Floor's yours. What's the team of the weekend, mate?
What, should I try and name it?
Yeah, go on, mate. Make everyone's day. And just don't say that any of them are nailed.
Ederson, I still insist I got that one right because he did start against Spurs.
Ederson's nailed.
Ederson, Walker, Diaz, Laporte, Cancelo, Rodri, De Bruyne, Bernardo. I'll say Mahrez over Jesus because of the Brazil thing. I'll say Torres over Sterling, and I think Foden will start left wing.
What was the yes for, Jack?
Torres.
Well, because you own him.
Yeah.
You don't want him to do nothing at the weekend,
no.
Mate. It's just double punishment.
No, but if I'm sat in the crowd and we're getting beat 5-0 and Torres gets all 5, it at least sort of softens the blow a little bit, doesn't it?
Come and sit next to me, John. Come and sit next to me, Jack.
I'd feel so dirty, mate. Do you think Torres up front then this week? I mean, that's the headline, I think, from that and Mahrez, in your opinion.
Yeah, maybe that's a bit of hope as well. I think I would prefer Torres up front over Sterling. I think he is, we've talked about it before, more of a natural finisher, more of a natural striker. Mahrez, again, maybe a bit of hope. But yeah, as Jack alluded to at the start, he does have a ridiculously good record against Burnley at home. And
it makes sense with Jesus obviously travelling to Brazil as well.
Yeah, Jesus out. And Foden, like I say, I've just seen actually starting for England tonight. Whether that makes a difference, I don't know. If he gets through it unscathed, hopefully. But I just think, like I said before, Foden is at a level now where I think he just has to play. He just has to be one of the first names on the team sheet now. Probably after Bernardo at the moment is the first name on the team sheet.
I was just going to say he's been absolutely brilliant. Bernardo Silva, what I've seen of you this season, Joe.
To think that we nearly sold him because if we had signed Kane, I think he would have been the fall guy, and we would have sold him for relative pittance as well. I'm talking 40 mil. He is at least a 70 million player. He's just so good on the ball, but just his work rate as well. I actually think that I don't know, even though all this talk about City having a striker, you dread to think how we'd have gone on in this week or the games before that if we'd had Kane without Bernardo. Because when Gundogan got injured, he's just been so good.
I mean, at Chelsea, he was absolutely brilliant defensively as much as offensively as well.
Yeah.
Really, really good. God, you're not short of some bad players, are you?
No. Yeah.
You just haven't got a centre forward. Is this basically the only thing that can stop you?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is it. It's just if there's too many games where we just don't put the chances away.
Fair. Jack, what's your thoughts on the title race as a neutral?
Still early days. I don't fancy Liverpool all that much. I don't know why. I think possibly City, but I think Chelsea will be up there as well. Definitely a top three of them three. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Johnny's pleased that this is now a 3-way conversation rather than a 4-way conversation. I think that's I can see the smiling acknowledgement. Before I finish, John, obviously big news with the takeover at Newcastle last week. They're going to get thrown similar stuff to what you've been thrown as a Man City fan. What would you advise to Newcastle fans who are suddenly going to be getting thrown accusations that aren't their fault.
You just have to be able to separate the two and just not get your allegiances confused. You don't have to answer for your owners. You don't have to try and defend them. You should use your voice as a Newcastle fan to criticise any, obviously all the reports that have come, well, not reports, but all the sort of bad things that come with the new owners. Use your voice to criticise them. But like I say, on the other hand, enjoy the football, enjoy the ride. Like I say, you can separate the two. So enjoy the signings that you'll make, enjoy the buzz, enjoy the players that you're going to get. And just ignore the idiots, basically, because there will be a lot of bashing, a lot of jealousy, and you'll be labelled glory hunters, and just ignore all that shit and enjoy it, basically.
I feel like all of us, and probably everybody listening who's gone to football and supported their team week in, week out for a long period, I mean physically gone to games, can probably relate to a period in time where they've gone and to support their team and hated what their club was doing, be it an owner or something. Nearly everybody, I'm sure even you've been through that, Jack. We've had periods where I'm going to support the team. I hate what's going on upstairs with the club and stuff. And I know it's not really fair to compare that because it's very, very different what's going on with Newcastle. But I'm sure you would have had that feeling at some point as well.
Yeah, there's definitely moments where you think, you're not quite happy with situations and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? It pisses me off that Newcastle's been taken over, and it leaves a bit of a sour taste in the mouth. But if someone would have turned around to me and said, Burnley have £200 million to spend in January, would I be pissed off? No, I'd be down in the pub celebrating. So it's just one of those, isn't it? Like, for me, it's another relegation rival that you think are going to survive another season unscathed. I
thought you were going to say, you're probably looking at it and going, well, if both clubs stay up this year, they definitely won't go down next year.
Yeah.
It's one more kind of hurdle for you to jump, and it might be longer term. It might be another hurdle for Manchester City to jump further down the road as well. Okay, thanks, gents. Let's do correct score predictions. Do we need to do? Let's do correct score predictions before we finish. Go on, Johnny.
I'm not going to say 5-0 because
6.
Johnny, why have you not just said 6-0? You've missed a golden opportunity there, mate.
What 1-0 Maxwell Cornet?
That's 1,000 to 1,
I generally might just slip a tenner on it. If it is. I'll go 3-0. 3-0 City.
Jack.
I'll be positive. I'll go 2-0 City.
I'll go 3 as well. There's definitely something stylistically that is why this keeps happening, but it can't keep being 5-0. But I think your season, Jack, it probably should have started last week, and then it probably starts at St Mary's in game week 9. You have got a very good run, and I generally think with the likes of Lowton, Taylor, Brownhill as cheap options, Chris Wood will come back into the thinking, and everybody needs to keep an eye on Dwight McNeil if you're playing on the right of midfield.
Yeah,
everybody.
Definitely.
Cool. Thanks very much, guys. Where can everyone follow you on Twitter, Johnny?
At FPL Pringle. Like I usually say, don't ask me who's going to play.
No, because I've already done it as well. So you can just, if you just find a minute, we can just say, listen to that. And then afterwards you can go, 7 out of 11 is not bad. And yourself, Jack, where can everyone follow you, mate?
Yeah, at Turfy Topper. And if you want to know who's playing, just look at our team sheet from last week. So it'll be the same.
Couldn't be more different. Love it. Thanks so much, guys. I'll be streaming on YouTube tomorrow. We'll be a little bit later than normal. We'll be 5 p.m. UK time. And obviously the deadline stream is at 10 a.m. UK time on Saturday. Next week's Clash of the Correspondents is Crystal Palace versus Newcastle with Mctavius and FPL Footballer. Just leaves me to say for now, thanks very much again to Johnny and to Jack. Good luck this weekend, gents. Cue music, please, man child.